All right, everyone, welcome to Granger Defined. This is the show essentially where we just talk about all the great things happening at Granger High School. This week we have with us Allie Schulte. We wanted to do a teacher profile, and I personally know Allie. I've known her for a little bit now, and I can attest that she's a wonderful person. So we wanted to start off and just kind of give you a moment, just kind of discuss your general background, where you grew up, how you got into teaching, what your educational background is. And so, time's yours. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I grew up in Wichita, Kansas, which a lot of people, when I say Kansas, initially think of just fields and fields of nothingness. But I was in a very urban area growing up. I attended the biggest high school in Kansas. It had over 3,000 students, kind of similar to Granger.
Okay.
I was myself as a student in the International Baccalaureate program, so I feel like I was very privileged in my educational experience to be exposed to a lot of different ideas and have really awesome teachers myself. I moved to Utah my senior year of high school and finished up at West High, which was a great experience, and then went on to the University of Utah. And for my undergraduate, I had no intention whatsoever of becoming a teacher. I studied English and journalism and worked in the print journalism field for a while, writing for magazines and newspapers.
Oh, wow.
And then I had an experience serving in LBS mission, which was kind of the initial catalyst to pursue teaching. I just had a lot of interactions with students in my mission that didn't have the same access to educational opportunities that I thought that they deserved. Really smart kids with a lot of promise, but that just kind of fell between the cracks for a lot of reasons. And so when I came back from my mission, I just had kind of a big conglomerate of experiences in the educational field. I worked as a college advisor, helping students to pursue higher ed. I worked in an after-school program in a junior high. And just through these experiences, I really became passionate about advocating for students, and I felt like the best place to do that was in the classroom, just working with kids one-on-one and helping them to see their own potential and get excited about their educations and about their futures.
Wow. Holy cow. So I didn't know that you had been so serendipitously led to kind of where you are now. I had no idea that you had gone through after-school programs, college advising. You have your master's degree as well, right?
I do. That was after having some of these work experiences, I started looking into programs where I could pursue a teaching license. And so I actually did a program. It was a new program at the U called Masters in World Languages. And so that enabled me to study and be licensed to teach Spanish, but then also get licensure to teach English and ESL because of my bachelor's degree. So really, it was an odd experience because I looked all over the country for programs, and the one program that really was ideal for me in my situation was right here in Salt Lake, and it was a really neat thing. Felt like it was exactly what I needed to do, and then led me here to Granger.
Well, that's wonderful. The University of Utah is wonderful. By the way, when I think of Kansas, I think more of Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz. That's Kansas,
too. Right? That's kind of the cliche line that I get from people is, "You're not in Kansas anymore." And I'm not. Yay!
See, I felt bad because I didn't always have the Plains idea coming. I was like, I guess I'm not like everyone else.
No, that's okay.
Okay, so transitioning back. So this is your first year of full teaching, right?
Yes.
So how has that experience been, especially compared to college advising and after-school programs at a junior high? Because it didn't seem like you really mentioned that you had worked in a high school before.
Right. I worked in a high school as a college advisor, but I mean, advising students one-on-one is a totally different experience than having 20 to 30 to 40 kids in a single classroom. And I felt really lucky. I student taught at Granite Park Junior High, which is a wonderful school and has a similar demographic of students as Granger. In fact, some of those students feed into Granger, so I see some of those kids in the halls occasionally that I taught for student teaching. But I feel really, really blessed to be at Granger as a first-year teacher, largely because there's a great desire amongst all the faculty to collaborate with one another. And as part of that, I feel like I can go to my colleagues when I have questions or concerns about things to kind of bounce ideas off of them. But at the same time, I feel like there's a lot of mutual respect for me, even though I am a first-year teacher. like my colleagues will just as often come to me and ask for my feedback and my input about things, and ask, what I'm doing in my classroom. And so I feel like even though I'm a first year teacher and I'm kind of the newbie in the building, that I'm still respected as an educator and for what I can bring to the table, which is, I think, a unique experience for some first year teachers.
Absolutely. I think it's interesting that even though you're the quote newbie, you're a newbie with some incredible credentials besides your master's degree, having lived in multiple states and experienced the education system in different areas. I kind of wanted to ask, since you mentioned collaboration, how is it, besides, asking, well, what are you doing in your classroom? How's that helping? Because you teach English, right?
Yes. Uh-huh.
How has the English department as a whole, for example, kind of grouped together to make sure that everyone's getting, because I know the department chair is Emily Parrish. Has she kind of headed that up? Or how is that kind of, what's that looked like? How have you guys come together to make sure that the students are getting not a uniform education, but a very good similar education?
Right. We, luckily, from the district, have curriculum maps that we're able to follow that we kind of base our instruction around. But at the beginning of the year, we met as an English department and we discussed some of the common assessments that we wanted to use to basically gauge whether students were progressing in the way they needed to for when they go on to the following grades. And so one of the things that is really great about Granger that we're doing in the English department is that every quarter students complete a writing portfolio assignment. And so we do different genres of writing. This quarter, ninth graders did like a personal narrative about themselves. They'll do informational writing, so basically a research paper. They'll do argumentative writing. And so each quarter, they add this portfolio writing assignment to an online portfolio. And that just builds from year to year. Every year they add their assignments, and they can, as students, also see their growth in their writing from year to year. Which I think I'm really excited to get to third and fourth quarter and to allow students to look back at their work from this quarter and to reflect on what they've learned and how much they've improved in their writing. And so that's one thing that I really love about the English department, that we have that common assessment and that common goal to kind of help students to recognize their progress and their growth. And then we can as well as teachers.
Absolutely. No, I think that's incredibly important. I know that for me, one of the things I'm most grateful for, I had Miss Parrish as a teacher, interestingly enough, at Taylorsville High School. And one of the things that she really stressed was writing. And as I transitioned into the university, I really began to recognize that if you can't write, that it doesn't matter what great ideas you have if you can't communicate them in a type of medium that everyone's going to be able to understand.
Exactly.
Those ideas, are essentially, well, they can't go as far as they would have without that communication. So, I mean, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Now, transitioning, you mentioned that you really enjoyed working at Granger High School, especially as a first-year teacher. And so we kind of wanted to ask, one of the questions we came up with was, what are the benefits, or I guess, the strengths compared to the weaknesses of working at Granger High School, especially as a first-year teacher? What do you see?
For me personally, beyond just the collaboration and kind of the community as a faculty member, I love the school because of its diversity. Like within my classroom, I feel like getting to know my students has been such an amazing experience because they all have such unique experiences in their lives, and they bring so many things to the table that they can use then in their writing and to relate to the things that we're reading in class. English is a really fun subject to teach just because it's all about life, and so helping students find those connections between their lives or sharing experiences that they've had in their lives through writing has been really, really rewarding. I think just the relationships that I've been able to develop with them is one of the things I love most about Granger and the things I learned from them.
Do you think that diversity has really enhanced their education, or has it been kind of difficult to work with? What would you say? Is it more of a difficult thing or more of a blessing in the students' lives that is going to enhance their education? What would you say?
I think that if it's used properly, if it's utilized, then it definitely is an asset. I think that there's certain aspects of working with the demographic of students that we work with that could be viewed as a negative. But I think especially with English, when we take the opportunity to allow students to engage in dialogue about who they are and about where they come from, and try and help them make the connections between their experiences and who they want to be and the things that they're learning, then that's when it becomes an asset. So just as an example, in English, one of the things that we try to do is always have essential questions. So questions that bridge that gap between what they're learning and their lives. And so the writing assignments and the reading assignments that they're doing this year, our essential questions all focus on identity. So what makes us who we are? Do we decide who we are, or is that something that's shaped by our environment and things that are out of our control? And so all of the writing assignments kind of address a different question that involve the student's identity. And it's been really cool for them to really think about that, and to see how, although they may have certain circumstances that are out of their control, they also have an element of control in choosing who they want to be, and who they want to become eventually. So that's just one example of how just kind of harnessing that diverse experience can allow them to get more excited about their education and apply it in new ways.
Sure, develop a greater understanding of those around them as well as themselves. I think that's a beautiful concept. What is it? What do you think? Do we control our destiny, or is it shaped by the environment we live in?
I think it's a combination of both.
A combination of both. Okay,
yeah.
I agree with that. Okay, so kind of not the last question, because we might open up to a few more, but kind of we wanted to give you an experience to describe if there ever has been just a moment where you've just stopped and looked up and said, yes, this has made it all worth it. I'm sure there are always experiences where you're like, how did I get into this job? Why did I get into this job? Could you just describe kind of one of those moments that you've had at Granger where you said, you know what, this is all worth it?
Yeah. Can I share two?
Yeah, absolutely. Wonderful.
So one, I have the opportunity to work with some students who, because of whatever reason, there's multiple reasons, just aren't motivated to succeed in their schooling. And luckily, I feel like with a lot of those students, I've been able to develop a positive relationship regardless. And we've had very explicit conversations about the fact that, you know, if they make these decisions, this is where their lives are going to be headed. And despite that, I had one student in particular who just over and over again, when we had these conversations, just said, I don't care. Like, I'm going to Feltmase. Like, there's nothing that you can do. Like, I respect you, and I know you're trying to help me, but there's nothing you can do to fix this. And this particular student, around the middle of the quarter, was actually checked out by his mom because he had been making some negative decisions, was sloughing most of his classes. Luckily, was coming to mind, but just not doing a lot of work in the class. And I had no idea that he was planning on being checked out, despite the fact I actually talked to his mom all the time. We became like best friends through this experience. But he actually, I had no idea he was going to check out, but he came by my office the day that he was checking out just to let me know, and he dropped off just a letter for me. And in the letter, he just expressed his thanks to me for maintaining that hope that he would eventually change and make those positive decisions, and that he really did know that I cared about him. And even though I wasn't able to see the end result of that, or I don't know ever if he will figure it out, I really, really hope that he does. It was a really gratifying experience to know that at least he recognized that there was someone that cared about him in the school, and that he took the time to come and let me know that he was leaving and that he appreciated that. So that was a really great experience for me. Excuse me.
No, absolutely. Wonderful.
The other, just kind of going back to trying to make connections between students' lives and what goes on in the hallways at Granger and different things in their education. We had a lesson where we were talking about connotative meaning of words and denotative meaning of words. So like dictionary definitions versus the history and kind of the feelings, emotions that are attached to words. And we always do starter paragraphs, and so the starter prompt that I gave them was, I gave them a little bit of background about the N-word, and I asked them if they thought, knowing that information, if it should be used today in any context. And we always have a discussion after they write their paragraphs, and we had a discussion about different things that they felt were relevant to that issue. And one of my students after class came up to me and said, when I saw that prompt on the board, I felt so uncomfortable, and I was really, really nervous about where this was going to go. And then she just said, but I'm so glad we talked about it. She's like, now that we talked about it, like, it makes so much sense, and I feel like now maybe people will think before they use that word, because it's one that I hear all the time as I'm walking through the halls. And so it was interesting to see how helping and enabling them to engage in a dialogue about things that even us as adults we avoid a lot of the time, helped them to kind of navigate some of those issues that they often face.
Absolutely. No,
Granger.
we really wanted to give you that opportunity just because, I mean, well, that's almost essentially the point of the show, to demonstrate to the community, to everyone watching and listening, that there are great things happening frequently at this high school. And when I say frequently, I mean there are moments like that teachers have every day where a student has a self-realization. The phrase "education sets you free" really, it's a reality. It sets you free from the chains that might be on your mind, on your heart, on your thoughts. And when you get rid of those chains through illuminating an individual, through discussions like that, prompts like that, then you really start to see in individuals a growth. And so that's really why we wanted to ask you that question. So we really appreciate those experiences. Those are beautiful experiences, and we just want to tell you how great a job we think you're doing here at Granger High School, and we're grateful for you coming on. Just before we part, is there anything else that you wanted to say or share?
Just that I love Granger. Go Lancers. I love being here.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah. Thanks very much, Miss A, for coming on.
No problem.
Just before we close, we want to encourage anybody listening to follow us on Twitter, to like or friend us on Facebook, and subscribe to us on YouTube so you can get all the information about the good things that are happening here at Granger High School.